Welcome to another episode of Challenged, the after version of Jönköping, which just happened this past weekend. We're fresh off flights, got our asses. Yeah, the player break might be happening, but we're not taking a break. Mike, this is something that people don't actually know about these Challenger events, is that the original DreamHack studios in Stockholm, obviously EFG now has them, and they do most of the production from the Stockholm studio. So your analyst desk and all your commentators are in Stockholm. And then they send that one lone person to the actual event, and that's you. You were there all on your own. You had no friends around you, none of the broadcast talent anyway. What was that like? What was it like being at DreamHack? How was that experience?
It's definitely different. I mean, the DreamHack side of things, I don't think I experienced as intensely here as I did in like Atlanta, just because DreamHack Summer is very Swedish. Everything's in Swedish. Everyone there is Swedish. There's a lot of Swedes, shockingly, in the heartland of Sweden. So the actual festival itself isn't so much geared towards me, which is fine. Obviously, it's a brilliant festival, been around for 30 years at this point, which is crazy. It's as old as I am. But it's the experience of being there is fun because it's just like, sometimes when you're there with a large group of talent, you kind of get wrapped up in the talent bubble, which is great. I love my colleagues. I love, hanging out with the colleagues in the broadcast space. But the difference with these events, as you would know as well, is you hang out with the crew because that's the bubble that you're part of. So it's a different perspective to sort of be embraced by this traveling circus that is the broadcast crew, where it is a bunch of folks who all come together over and over and over again for these challenger events, for like Dream League, for events like that, where they're a family. They all know each other and have known each other for years. And I know some of them from repeat events, but it's also like joining into that family and getting to be part of it for a weekend, which is it's very fun. And they're super welcoming and friendly and very much eager to have me there. So it's I enjoy it. It's definitely a different feel from like doing it on the studio side of things, but it's fun.
I did the stage hosting role for a few challenges last year, and I think that was my favorite part, is that you are kind of pushed out of your normal space, because normally you, like you said, you're with the broadcast talent, you sort of sit in the green room all together, then you go to work. Whereas for Challenger, you're hanging out with the crew. I felt like I learned so much more about the different roles that are occurring and the things that are happening behind the scenes, and also like how the way I do my job impacts that. So in a way, I feel like it's a cool way to like level up if you're talent, which no one really cares about, because anyone watching is probably not too concerned about leveling up their talent role. Like, they're here to find out about the teams. But that was my favorite part, is like better understanding how this entire machine works, and also realizing how stressful it is to get a LAN event off the ground and to run something like that and keep so many people happy, keep teams happy, and keep everything on time.
Yeah. Shout outs to player managers for having to deal with teams constantly. But yeah, no, it is very much, it's very reminiscent to me of like an old fashioned carnival, right? Where everyone rolls into town, gets off the train, packs out, sets up this crazy thing, runs a brilliant show for 3 days, and then tears it all down and moves it on to the next place. And so a little bit of a carnival, a little bit of a traveling circus, and everybody's got their part, and everyone's pretty damn good at doing what they need to do.
And it's just a fun circus all around. Obviously now the point of Challenged is we do a before show where we chat a little bit about what we can expect, what we think about the teams, and then we make some predictions about how the event will roll out. And now this is the follow-up to see how those predictions panned out. Overall, if you had to take a look at the 3 days of competition, I mean, were you expecting you were expecting the results? You're like an NA fanboy, so Complexity obviously wins it, and I was like, here we go. This entire episode is going to be very painful to go through, because you're just going to be celebrating that the entire time.
Why are you saying this? Two South Africans won the trophy too. Come on now. JT and TC lifted a trophy they were in the final of 6 years ago. with Bravado. That's crazy to me in terms of like time is a flat circle shit of, you know, storylines of that was their like breakthrough event where people started taking Bravado seriously. And it's what led to those guys, you know, getting the opportunities they've had competing in NA for 6 years. It's crazy to think about how long it's actually been as part of that. And then they finally lifted a trophy. They've never had the damn trophy. They've been in finals. They were in the final there. They were in the final in that FunSpark Ulti. They were in the final in Sydney. They've gotten so damn close. And yeah, maybe this isn't a Cologne. Maybe this wasn't the biggest of stages, but it's a trophy for complexity. I think that's super cool. I didn't even predict them to win it because they've just made me sad so many times that I had lost the faith. But faith renewed and restored. And I hope their own faith is restored as well. Because that team is, I love those guys. You know, I see them at a lot of events. I've followed a lot of them from the beginning of their careers. Like, I've been watching, you know, Floppy and Grim since they were like 16-year-olds competing at local lands. But it's just like, that team is a bunch of head cases in some ways. They're so good. And I think that, I hope that they're just going to let themselves be happy. Because they're such like doomers sometimes where, you know, they won this trophy and they're like talking about the flights home already. It's like, just enjoy the trophy, man. Enjoy your trophy lift. Enjoy it. Go have fun. Soak in the moment and let it be some confidence building for the future. So I don't know. I really like that team. I think it's a very good Counter-Strike team. I'm curious to see what's going to happen now that they won this event. There's a little bit of a lift going into the break because I think that there is some focus on potentially making changes to them. It's certainly been talked about in the community a lot. And I'm kind of curious to see what they're going to do, to be honest.
I'm going to go off on a tangent. Yeah, I'm going to go off on a tangent on the first point you made about obviously the two South Africans and them being there 6 years ago. And it's weird how the way things work out because Bravado is actually, their team landed in Serbia yesterday for Project Destiny 2.0. So let me explain, because I'm obviously originally from South Africa. Bravado Gaming is like a big organization here, and they realized they had this Counter-Strike team that just won everything here, which isn't that hard to do. They were very good. This was a couple of years ago. I think it was like 7 years ago. And they went, you know what we're going to do? We're going to invest a bunch of money and we're going to take this team, we're going to put them in the States, because at the time it made more sense to be in North America to play Counter-Strike. And we're going to try and do something. We're going to try and get, you know, the international audience to notice us and get this team up to a point where people notice. And that was the original move. Obviously, JT was part of that lineup, TC as well, Sonic, who still sometimes plays. They moved the team, and it was, like you mentioned, 6 years ago when people started paying attention to them and noticing them. And then it was really unfortunate because I tried to report on this story at the time, and it was very difficult to get the full story. But my understanding was that Bravado kind of ran out of money to keep paying for this. Their sponsors kind of went, whoa, hold on, this is getting really expensive. Contracts were coming to an end. A bunch of orgs kind of came in and grabbed players very fast. Some players weren't comfortable with the way things were done, so they were like, screw this, I'm going back home. Some stayed, like JT. There was this like really weird time where they got picked up by like some dodgy organization, and then there was talk about them going somewhere else. And then ATK popped up, which was another South African organization, and said, hold on, we'll kind of like throw some money behind this and keep you going. And ultimately then sold the team to Cloud9. It was a whole damn thing. But that was called Project Destiny. And it was very disappointing for a lot of people as to how it ended. But as much as we say that, what did happen is two South African players, JT and Sonic, and a South African coach kind of ended up at Cloud9, which was something that had never been done before. And now we got JT in Complexity, TC coaching. It's a huge thing. What's since happened is from an ESL Challenger in Katowice last year, based on the performance of Bravado Gaming, they didn't win any of their games, but they looked relatively impressive against ENCE, who had just come off of an IEM Dallas win. The organization said we should do this again, and they've raised the money, and they've now committed to keeping the team in Serbia for 2 years. They've chosen the European route this time. 4 players, they don't have a fifth yet, and they all got on a plane on, I think it was Monday or Tuesday, and they've landed in Serbia, and they're going to try this again. So I felt like it was kind of fitting for JT and TC to be holding that trophy on Sunday, and for these guys to be leaving on Monday. I kind of liked the soft and squishy part of me, thoroughly enjoyed that whole sort of time circle that happened. However, I still wonder how much like faith Complexity fans put in this trophy, because as we all know, they kind of go, oh, well, it's just an ESL Challenger event. So like, but I still think a trophy is a trophy. And I actually think it was Alan who said it on the desk in the final. He's like, we remember trophies. We don't remember HLTV rankings or anything. We remember trophies. And finally, after a very long drought, North American Complexity have their trophy.
And the thing as well is, it's not like it was a cupcake run. That's the thing. Sometimes you look at these challenges and you go, whoa, who did they beat? They beat, like, I mean, the only cupcake opponent they had was Alliance, right? Like, Alliance was the easiest of wins. That was the freest of wins. The fact that they made it through the Swedish qualifier in the first place was a surprise. There's like 3 better Swedish teams consistently. But if you look at the Complexity run, they lost to ENCE at a BO1. ENCE also upset MIBR, which was the shock of the weekend, frankly. They beat MIBR in a BO3. MIBR is a good team. They beat Aurora in a BO3. Aurora's inconsistent, but they're a damn dangerous team. And then they beat Falcons in the final. And this was a Falcons team that finally looked like they were putting something together. Preeh was playing with his hair on fire. Like, this is a good run. Yeah, you know, again, it's not a Cologne. It's not a Cato. It's not a Pro League where you have like that sustained result over the course of a group stage and then a playoffs and whatnot. Challengers are very quick. But this ain't a cupcake run. And, you know, acting like there's no pressure in this event when there absolutely is for a team where they're desperately searching for that trophy. Complexity as an org hasn't had a LAN trophy since 2010, which is insane. They haven't had a LAN trophy since 1.6 with a team that had Fallen and FNX on it, and Bit, the MIBR coach, was on it. Like, there was a huge pressure. So I think that this one matters. I think this one might matter more than even the players think it does. Because it is an event that they should go in and win, right? But Complexity's been to a lot of events that they should go in and win, and they don't, because there's a lot going on there. You know, Counter-Strike is a complicated game, and people are head cases, and things go against you, and teams have Cinderella runs and that kind of thing. They won this one, and they did it the way they should. Apart from the ENCE loss, but we don't need to worry about that one. They did it the way they should. And that's, you know, it's good. It's good. It is, to me, this is a good victory, and they should celebrate it, and they should glory in it a little bit. And I think that I just really hope it's going to be a bit of a page turner for them, where they're like, okay, we can lift the trophy. This can happen. Now we visualize it. Now we realize it. Sometimes you see this with rosters where they just have that like one series where it's like, oh yeah, we can just win these. And then they just give themselves permission almost to just win and not get map points and collapse and not have to have crazy comebacks. Just play consistently good Counter-Strike, because we know this team can do it.
I think that B-Dogs was one of the commentators, and I think we quoted this line so many times during the weekend, but it is such a good line. He said Complexity always, in the past, has played to survive, and they need to play to win. And I think we finally actually saw them. I felt this the most in the final, where I went, damn, this is hungry. Like, this looks like, I mean, ELiGE was just incredible, but it wasn't just him. Everyone else was coming to the party as well. And I was like, this is what everyone wants. And I agree with you on the thing that I don't think this is a Mickey Mouse run. I think that there were big hitters in this event. I mean, there was big competitive teams. It was a stacked lineup of teams. And yes, some of them didn't really perform to the level we wanted. But for the most part, I ignore the group stages, because I think best of ones they're just best of ones. But if I take a look at the playoffs, like, it was a strong 4-team lineup going into that. And some of the, actually, to be honest, the loser bracket runs of the group stages, which are the best of 3s, were insane. Like, you have MIBR in the mix. They won the last one. Like, there was no easy way through either group. So Complexity should be pretty happy with this. But we've brought their name up a few times, so I kind of want to talk about, was ENCE a surprise for you? Because I did not.
Yes.
ENCE makes a full run to the semifinals. I mean, fair enough, they just played some best of ones. But even in the semis, I mean, I was like, flip, this is a team that they haven't really practiced together. And they looked decent. I don't want to say they look good. I was like, if this is what it looks like now, this could be something to take a look at in a few weeks' time.
Yeah, I think ENCE was a team that was so unpracticed that they couldn't even agree how many days of practice they'd had. Like, SDY's like, we've had 4 days of practice. Kicksense, like, not Kicksense. What am I doing here? Glaive is like, Glaive never talked to me. Somebody told me that they had 6 days of practice. Cuban's like, we have 5 days of practice. Finally, I like start quizzing players. I'm asking Podi, I'm like, how many days of practice have you had? He's like, I'm gonna go with 5. It's like, correct answer. Coach said it. So this is a team that was very much not on the same page. that's fine, right? Like they're figuring it out as they go along. I almost think like I don't think we can really draw any super hopeful conclusions from this because it is just two BO1s and then they kind of got whomped against the Falcons. But yes, I think the encouraging thing here, if you're ENCE, is that Podi looked good. I think that's the really encouraging thing because that's the risky bet here. SDY is SDY. Once SDY is integrated in, I have zero concern that SDY will be a good contributing member of this roster. Kylar's been playing really damn well. That's super cool. Goofy plays very good. Solid CS. Has his big moments as well. That's good. You have your two gems from the old roster. It's Glaive. Glaive's been doing fine. Needs some time to implement it, but I trust Glaive and Cuban to figure that out now that they've sort of been partners through 3 iterations of this roster. You'd imagine that there's some synergy developing between them. So the big question mark was Podi. Like, this is a 19-year-old guy who's making the jump up to the main team for the first time. That doesn't always go well. You never know. But he did well on stage. He did well in the interviews. He was very solid, very comfortable. He only pretended not to speak English to me once. And that was very much a joke. So, like, I think it's encouraging. I think that's what's encouraging. Now you take it into the break. Presumably they'll have a boot camp coming out of the player break. You actually get some time to put this roster together and to see what it can be. And if Pudi can be what they hope he can, which is, you know, a very mechanically skilled AWPer, this team could take some heads at Cologne. I'm assuming they have a Cologne spot. I actually haven't checked. What do they have?
I think that they might.
They
liked Podi. Oh, they don't?
They have Pro League.
They're Pro League. So there we go. I liked Podi. There were times where I thought he struggled a little bit in the server, but then there were also times where I think you could see a level of confidence coming from him. And I do think that that comes from Glaive. Like, they set him up quite nicely and you could see that there were some confident plays. So he was obviously feeling good in that lineup. So it'll be interesting to see what they can do. I think Glaive is like the perfect IGL though for someone like Podi to fit under because of the amount of experience he comes with and his ability to position him well. So it'll be an interesting one to take a look at. The other interesting one, I mean, if we're going to get into predictions, I predicted that they would win the whole damn thing. I was very vocal. I was very wrong, but they did make the finals. And it was like the really questionable team, right? That everyone's kind of just been harping on because of Saudi money and whatever else. And that was Falcons. They tried so hard. I was actually like a little bit heartbroken for them in the finals just because the individuals, like Preeh was just, you could just see like the level he was playing at was like, it was exactly what you would expect from Preeh because he's a superstar. But there is a level of like try that was coming from him where he just wanted to like single-handedly carry this team to the trophy, and it wasn't enough and it broke my heart. But they made the finals at least, which is a step up for them, right?
Yeah, it's wild too from Preeh because he was sick the whole weekend. Like, that was legitimately, if you just saw his face when he was playing, it's just like what the fuck am I doing here? Like, and he's just fragging. He's just flat frying in the server. I mean, literally, he is like, even in their Aurora loss, which was a 16-14 BO1 opener. I'm trying to remember. I think he went like 30, 29 and 23.
It was mental. Absolutely.
He was
mental.
Like, he was the only player who was positive on his team. He was just like dragging them over the line and then couldn't do it in overtime. But like, there were a lot of games like that where he was just far and away the mechanical outplay. Even on in the final, when we were watching Complexity, I was watching with Graham, with Messioso in the audience, right? And it'd be like, they're in a man-up situation. It's like a 4v2. It's all fine. Realize Preeh's still alive. Preeh just headshots 3. Round falls apart. Like, what the hell is happening? It was genuinely one of those performances that you just you attribute to, you know, obviously Preeh's had those in the past, but it's the kind of play that right now you're looking towards a Donk or a Zaibu or a Simple of yore, where it's just like, okay, we should win this round, but this guy's still alive. So until he's dead, we might not win this round. Let's find out. So that's insane for a guy who, you know, people have been speculating about, like, is he even coming back? Is he on the back half of his career, out of vitality? Is he too far gone? He has a kid now. Does he have the same passion for the game? Dude can shoot. Dude can shoot real hard. And that's sick to see. I think Falcons as a whole making it to the final is obviously very good for them. They secured a Pro League spot, which is hugely important as well. They put together games where they looked competent, which is encouraging. But all that being said, they also put together games where they did not look competent, even in some that they won, right? Like, you're looking at some of those Nuke games, and Nuke's supposed to be a stronghold for them, and their spacing is just really bad on the T side. Like, they're peeking in towards A executes one by one and just getting killed. Like, the most basic of shit for a Nuke game is your upper take, right? If you don't have a good upper take, you are not going to have a lot of fun on that map. And somehow they made it work, largely through big individual plays. Dupree and Madden, you know, stepping up and having like monster maps. Some players having some as well. But like, for a team that has Snappi and Zonic, that has Lars Robel behind them, that has all this support, all this money being spent, all this experience in terms of the players, they look shockingly uncoordinated still, especially on their T sides, in a way that is confusing. Like, this team should not be playing individual Counter-Strike in the way that they're needing to win games. And so it's like, I think a change, at least one change, probably only one change is coming this summer. And I don't think that's because they don't want to change two players potentially. I think it's because of when they added Dupree. If they change more than one player who's not named Dupree, they will lose their Valve ranking. So someone's probably going to go, and I don't know who the hell it's going to be, because I don't think there's a right choice. Like, I think that this 5 is probably the right choice, but because of the way things have gone, you just kind of have to move something.
Do you think that they will make a change, though? I don't think that they're going to. I think that they're going to stick with this. I think that this is what we're going to see till the end of the year from Falcons. I legitimately don't think they swap something out.
I don't know. The problem for me is that I don't know who you get. And I don't know, like, I don't think there's an obvious upgrade over any of these players who's a free agent. And, like, you can buy somebody out because you have stupid Falcons money, presumably. But, like, I don't know who's going to want to go to this tainted project at this point. It was one thing when the promise was a massive paycheck and also being part of a super team. That's an exciting prospect. Now it's a massive paycheck and, hey, this shit ain't working. Can you fix us? Which is, like, a way tougher ask. You know, like, you're going in, you've seen how much these guys have just been blasted by the public as well over the last 6 months for being part of this team. Every time they lose, people are posting, I am so excited for team that has beat Falcons. This is a great victory for team that has beat Falcons. Like, that's literally the meme on Reddit, is just, people are just rooting for whoever the fuck is playing Falcons. And that has nothing to do with the players, and it's not their fault, but it's the reality. So this is kind of a poison chalice now. Like, I don't know who they're going to get. I just don't know. And I don't know who you swap out. I don't know who you get rid of. Like, I guess what was the lowest performer from this tournament was either Snappi or Magisk. But, like, Snappy's the IGL, and there's no obvious IGLs unless you're going to go get Cadian, I guess. And then Magisk is, like, Magisk, right? You're not gonna swap him.
Well, that's my thing. There were moments where there were games in this tournament where he was fantastic. There were games where he was shit as well, but, like, you're not going to get rid of him. I think, so sometimes people forget that we're fans. I do think that a lot of, like, talent don't showcase it as much. And I get that, but sometimes I let it slip. And I probably put Mike in one of his most uncomfortable moments. He's standing on the stage with Snappi to do a winner's interview, and I have a somewhat emotional outburst on the stage.
You killed me with that one.
I just lost it because I'm a fan, and I mean, I said it at the time. TLDR basically was like, I know that they've just won, but, like, this is terrible. This is not like, and then I said, like, these players are fantastic. We love these players. Why is that? They've got the best of the best. They're all together. We want them to succeed. We can see them in the server trying to succeed. Why are they not succeeding? I am terrified for you. Had this giant thing, and poor Mike had to stand next to Snappi the entire time that happened. But I was quite embarrassed afterwards, and you never read the chat, but I went back to read the chat, and everyone in there was going, well, she's right. She's right. We agree. And that's when I realized we all feel the same. So, I mean, what is not working there? You have some of the best players. They've all got good attitudes. You've got a great coaching staff. According to Snappi, you interviewed him, and he said that they have buy-in, that their organization knows this is a long-term project, so there's no pressure, that the results are not upsetting the organization. I think that's bullshit, but, like, he said it. What's not working here? Everything on paper says it should work. Why can you still not find any sort of synergy? I don't believe they made they would never have made the finals if it wasn't for those individual performances from Madam, Dupree, Magic's every so often, like that. Some Pius had a few pop-offs. I think if it wasn't for the individual plays, they would have dropped out in the group stages.
Yeah, probably true. I mean, they almost lost Nuke to Party Astronauts, right? Like,
That was
PA
the
almost
speech,
closed
right?
that,
Yeah.
which is crazy. But yeah, I first off, that was such a funny moment because I'm there with him, and it's like, okay, let's do the interview, blah blah blah. Set him up. I'm like, they're gonna throw to us in just a moment, and then it's like, oh, we're not throwing. Sam's not throwing. Oh god, what's happening here? And I'm looking at him like, because I always wonder how much players actually listen to that, because they just got done with the game. They're probably replaying rounds in their heads. They're like pretty zoned out, frankly. And so for the most part, they're just like not paying attention to what's coming over the loudspeaker. But it's like, you said his name enough times that no human being is zoning that out, like when you're getting personally called out. And I'm just looking at him like, okay. Fortunately, Snappi is just a consummate pro in terms of that stuff. Like, I don't think he enjoys interviews, but he understands that it's important and part of it. And so he's always very professional about it. Like, some players are more of a pain in the ass to get an interview with than others, but Snappy's always been like, he's there, he's doing it, and he's very honest about what's going on with them for the most part. So I don't think you got to look away from, you don't have to like shade your eyes the next time you see Snappy. It'll be fine.
I spoke as a fan, like I did speak as a fan, and I think I said it clear. I want them to succeed. Lots of us want them to succeed. We just don't understand why they're not. And I don't know if a change fixes whatever's going on there.
I think it's the mental. I really do think it's the mental. I think that it's one of these things where you're a team that came in, it was supposed to work instantly and it didn't work, and you're asking, why doesn't it work? They're asking, why doesn't it work? The fan pressure is enormous. You've been used to the last year. Think about where the ENCE core was last year, what they were doing last year. They were the media darling. They were the team that wasn't expected to be as good as they were and rose above expectations and lifted trophies, and everyone loved them. Even the teams, even opposing players at the end of the day could get behind the ENCE story because it's an org without a ton of money. It's an org that puts this together with some of the cast off, some of the pieces that you wouldn't expect to necessarily make the jump to this level of play, and they mesh and everything clicks and they're all playing on the same page and they're playing really good CS on the same page, and everyone knows their role and everyone's fulfilling their role, and the sum is greater than the parts in that team, right? Like, everyone plays above their previous level, and it's super cool and easy to get behind and a great storyline and all that shit. Now you're on a team
it's not,
where everyone loves to root against you. Every roster, every stadium. This stadium was actually a little bit behind them because obviously Danes were right in Jönköping. It's, very close. There were Danes there. They had a fan group. But a lot of stadiums don't like them. A lot of Twitch chat certainly doesn't like them. Reddit doesn't like them. Twitter doesn't like them. If they're looking at any public forum, the huge weight of public opinion is going to be negative. They're also the team that is expected to be in playoffs. They even started out the year in Katowice playoffs. That was super encouraging. Everyone's looking at it going like, okay, this is going to work. And then it hasn't since. And it's like, you're asking yourself every time, like, why isn't this clicking? Why doesn't this feel easy? Why doesn't this feel natural? And you're just getting into this cycle where it's like, why? And before they could look at Boros, because Boros was absolutely a problem. I know the mouse thing is a meme, but like, Boros never should have been on this team. They gave him a shot. He didn't earn it. Dude is not ready to be a professional at this level. But dupreeh's supposed to fix that. dupreeh's playing well. So you can't be like, well, he's not playing his role. He's not living up to expectations. He's the best player consistently since he joined the roster. Like, it's just, it's hard to find the why. And I think that's what gets very frustrating for teams and leads them into sort of this like death spiral almost of mentality of like, they're asking the same question you are, Sam. Why isn't it working? And they don't seem to have answers. And that's where it's like, there is no one you can point to. We have the GOAT coach. We have the GOAT support staff. We have all the resources, all the money, all the flights, like everything you could possibly want. So why isn't it working? And that's, I don't know. I really don't know. And I do not envy the people who are trying to fix it, because shit if I know, man. But I will say, I think in the same vein that this is a good result for Complexity, this is a good result for Falcons. As much as they're like, we're supposed to win this trophy, they lost to Cole. Cole is a top 10 team in the world. That is an acceptable loss for Falcons, right? They made Pro League. That was the thing they had to do. They had to place better than Mongolz. As soon as they did that, they pretty much made Pro League. Making it to the final secured it, right? It's good. They got the wins they needed to. I don't think the problem for them is they're not going to look back and have any of those glorious wins. Like, they beat Mongolz. Yes, that's a good win. But Madden also shit all over them. And that's the only reason they beat Mongolz on Mirage. So I think it's positive enough that maybe they can take a little sweetness in the player break and have positive momentum coming out. But we'll see. That's my Falcons.
There's your I liked it. I mean, at least you didn't do it in front of Snappi, so you're fine. I loved when you were explaining how ENCE was kind of like the media darlings. I feel like the role this season of that ENCE is Mongolz. Like, they've become the media darlings, the team that we all love. You know, the story is so beautiful. They come from Mongolia. They have nothing. You know, they don't have the same resources. They pitch up a challenger, 2 trophies, back-to-back LAN trophies. You predicted them that this was the team that you said was going to lift that trophy. I'm not sure I don't think that, so I'm going to say this. I don't think that they played bad Counter-Strike at all. I don't think that there was a moment where I watched the Mongols and went, oh, they're not playing well. I just don't think that they just didn't look like the Mongols at points. Like, it just felt like maybe they were just outplayed by teams who wanted it more. And I want to say maybe fatigue, but I hate that excuse because I think professional players know what their job is. But wasn't quite the Mongols we were expecting to see. Didn't get out of groups.
I think, okay, I'm going to, a couple things. First off, for my prediction, it was even bolder because this was before they won Yalla. Just want to say that. I put that on the page before they won Yalla. So it wasn't just like they won the last tournament, they're going to win this one. It was like, I think they're in a positive upswing. I think if you're the Mongols, you can take this tournament, take the lessons that you learned from it, and then just forget about it. And that's what they should do, honestly, is it's Challenger. It's an unforgiving format. They know that. We know that. Everyone knows that. This is a young team. So I agree that the fatigue excuse is like, it doesn't, like, it's tough. And players get fatigued towards the end of the season, and you definitely see it affect teams. But it is less of an excuse for battle-hardened teams like Falcons or like Complexity that know this grind. It's still tough. It is I think, probably the hardest part of this job for all of those guys is just dealing with a travel schedule, especially for teams like the Mongols that have insane travel schedules to get to any event. First off, like Australian teams, like American teams, like especially for the non-Euro teams, that is genuinely a factor, especially towards the end of the season if you've been on the road for an extended period of time. The thing for the Mongols is they're so young. I know we forget about this because Blitz comes out with these crazy interviews on Mongolian where he's like, the essence of a man is a particle of dust in the wind or some shit. And you're like, oh my God, this dude's writing fucking wisdom out into the universe. Like, but he's 22 and he's the oldest player by far. He's the IGL. He's 22. He's a baby still. Like, they're so young. And Xenia's still 16, I think. Is he finally 17? No, he's still 16.
He's still 16, yeah.
Senzu's 17. 910's what? 21? Like, they are babies. The guy who does all the interviews is 19. Techno gets thrust into every damn interview before and after games. And he's 19. Like, they're so young. So the thing for Mongols is, like, this is not, I know everyone got up in the Tizio after Yalla and everyone's arguing, is it S tier, is it not? Whatever. They won a LAN trophy. That's sick. Super cool. This is not a team that's ready to win like a Cologne yet, right? Like, that's the next step. But they're so young. They're so young. They've got so much time in front of them. I think that they're going to look at this past season and be like, this is a great season. We leveled up. We evolved from being a group stage upset team. Like, before, they were just the team that ruined somebody else's tournament. That was their thing. They'd win a BO1 or, like, scrape a BO3 and just ruin someone else's tournament. Now they're a dark horse. That is a very different conversation, right? This is a team that you're looking at coming into an event like a Cologne and saying they could make playoffs. Not just they can screw up somebody else's playoff run, it's they can make playoffs, and we have to consider them, genuinely. And that is a world of difference. So I think that they can look at this and go, you know, we had 3 events pretty much in a row. One in Mongolia with the Mesa tournament, then they went to Yalla, and then they went to Jönköping. They're also entering a different phase where teams are focusing on them in a way that they have never before. Before, this was the team where you're just going like, well, they're just going to headshot and such, and we need to focus on the other teams in our group and just deal with that. Now teams are going to study them and look at them and think about them in a different way and spend more of their resources on preparing for the Mongols. That changes the way that you have to prepare as a team. They need to be able to refresh things and change things up and be a little less readable and predictable, because right now they are still heavily dependent on individual performances, right? They're heavily dependent on Sensu popping off, or 910 popping off, or Blitz popping off. Somebody has to pop off for the Mongols to do well. I think their next evolution is getting to a point where the floor is raised. They've raised the ceiling. Now they need the floor to catch up. And I think that's what this event showed with the loss to Falcons, right? Because even in that Mirage game, which Mirage was their map pick, they should have done well. If Sensu wasn't dropping a million kills, he went 28-13. He was just behind Madden in that. It was literally like, it felt like it was Madden versus Sensu, and then like some Pius coming along for the ride and no one else. If they didn't have that, they would have gotten washed. So I think that it's just like, I think there's lessons to be learned, but I'm not remotely concerned for Mongols because of this, and I think they'll be good coming out of the player break. That's my read on Mongols.
I agree with you. I also think that like Madden, I think he tweeted this himself. He had like a WTF game. Like I really do think if Madden hadn't popped off like that, Mongols probably would have evened out that series, and maybe we'd be having a different conversation. But I don't think that they can be upset about this. I will say I don't think Yalla is. I know it's called an S tier because of the prize money, but I don't think it is at the same level as like Cologne and Cato. So that argument to me has just always been dumb. It's my opinion on it. It's the only time I've actually had an opinion on it. But I think that they've still played good opposition. Like they've played good teams. They've done well. So they can be happy coming into the next iteration of the year, I guess. And then obviously the only prediction that I got right was I said Aurora makes it to the semis and doesn't go any further. And they did that. I've got to ask you, because you're on stage, right? So all I see is player cams. To me, it feels like this team never communicates. Like they're always in silence. And I know that's ridiculous. Obviously, they talk, but hell, they don't talk a lot. I actually think that's why they lost the semis, to be fair. I don't think that they communicate enough. But
yes,
what do I know?
I think that's very true. I think it's also hilarious the way that they speak. Dasha, our stage manager for this event, who we both know and have worked with, she speaks Russian and she can't understand them because she says they speak. Yeah, the way that they speak is a mixture of, it's so slangy, so many Counter-Strike terms, and so many swear words. They're just constantly swearing. They are like, this team is hilarious. And like the players, the coach, the manager was screaming like swears and insults from the audience against Complexity.
I was going to bring that up next. I was going to ask you about that actually.
This team is bizarre in a lot of ways. And so like she's like, I literally don't know what they're saying. Like I can't decipher it. And as we know, that is not a language problem on Dasha's side. That is this team has its own language. And they're kind of like, to my knowledge, a lot of them, it's kind of like the pieces that didn't work out elsewhere for reasons that are not about their in-server performance, right? Like there's sort of this generation of CIS players right now where I think Hooch has talked about it, where there's like a lot of, they're, they feel like NA players to me. Their problem is toxicity and like not being good teammates and not being good team players. And they've kind of like found a band here together where like they're all kind of in that mentality a little bit and it's kind of working out. And they're all like a little rough around the edges, but they need to polish it. They need to polish it if they're going to be any sort of consistent. I will say also, when we were talking about burnout, Aurora is a different kind of burnout where it's not like travel. It's just that they play so much damn CS online or on land. Like they're just constantly playing everything they can. That at a certain point, it's like you just need time off to like change anything, to not just play officials and to just rest. So I think the player break will be good for them. I think Result is realizing that he's got his hands full as a little bit of a calmer player in this roster, trying to sort them out a bit. And I think that there's a lot that they can do outside of the server in terms of just maturing and calming down a little bit and getting better with the comms, as opposed to just shooting harder. Because they shoot hard. They're really good individually. Deco is damn good shooting. But as Norvi said after he went off, I think Deco watched a demo for the first time in 3 years, and maybe that's what led to it. So maybe we can get him to watch a demo more often. And it's like, yeah, that's the next level. If you don't start professionalizing, you ain't gonna do shit beyond a Jönköping.
I think that for me was, I laughed, obviously, because it was really funny where they're like, oh, I watched a demo for the first time in 3 years. But I was like, here's your problem. That is a they're like the perfect tier 2 team. They're really good individually. So they screw people up in those tier 2 competitions and great. But then when they go up against like better opposition, which is where they found themselves, where like Falcons, we all talk about how they're just relying on individual brilliance and like don't really know what they're doing, but they can communicate. I mean, not well, but better than Aurora. And that was the thing. I felt like when it comes down to it, they actually need to start like playing as a team and having some sort of like strategy when they come into this. And I'm just curious because of the negative attitude that they seem to have, how that works when you all sit down after the player break and try and change that up and say, okay, now we need to do this, this, and this. I don't know if that group of players knows how to work as a team, actually. I don't know if they can all sit down and, what is it, the sports psychologist analogy, unpack the backpack and figure that all out. I feel like that's going to always be Aurora's stumbling block. And it was so well shown because, I mean, that was the thing ELiGE tweeted, like that the manager of the team was in the crowd, like just hurling insults at complexity during their game and like getting mad. And then we got to see the teabagging from ELiGE, which I just loved because I'm like, listen, I love ELiGE, but he's not exactly he's not an emotionless player. Like he gets pretty emotional too. So I was like, you really want to start like pissing off the one guy who is popping off and is going to like teach you a goddamn lesson? Like that was fascinating. Were you there? What was the shouting? Was that happening? Like you mentioned that the manager was shouting, but I mean, was it that hectic that he's just like screaming insults at players?
I mean, I don't know what the hell he's saying because it's all in Russian. But yeah, he was shouting.
Okay, fair enough.
He was definitely shouting at them. I'm sure it was not nice what he was saying. To give him some credit back, I think what he was trying to do is that he's the reality of being a Russian team traveling right now is that you're not going to find a lot of fans. And even if you have fans, they're not going to be loud about it because don't want to put that spotlight on yourself. So
hurl insults at ELiGE? I mean,
what he's trying to do is he's trying to pump up his own team and keep them in it. That's probably his mentality, is just shouting. But a lot of player managers do that. Like, ENCE's player managers may be louder than everyone. Linda is loud, but she's just cheering for the team. That's the difference, right? Cheering for your team when they have a big moment. Cool. Great. Love that. Lots of people do that. It's cool. And when you're traveling and there's small crowds, you can affect the noise and change that. Maybe the mentality for the team. Shouting at the other team when you're a professional is not cool. That's the part where it's like, grow up. You know, like that ain't cool. And as much as you might want to have that us against the world mentality, when you're all traveling and attending the same events and whatnot, maybe don't be a dick to your competitors because you're gonna see them again. And life's going to be a lot more comfy for you if people are happy to see you as opposed to like, oh, this asshole. So it's just kind of self-defeatist in a way. Cheering for your team, yes. Insulting the other team when you're not even a player in the server, not so much.
Teabagging though, yes, I enjoyed that.
Hilarious, yes.
Yeah, that made me giggle. I had fun.
I did ask him about it too because it's like you just don't see it from him. Like ever. Like ELiGE is the consummate pro in so many ways, especially in like what he wants to be is like the ultimate professional, the ultimate like role model guy. And so when he's like breaking it out and body spamming and stuff, that shit's funny.
That was fun. I enjoyed that. That was like, I'd say my highlight. If we have to like wrap it all up though, if you have to take a look at Challenger this weekend, what would you say were like your best moments?
There was that. Okay, so the one, the mostly ELiGE place, to be honest. There was the ELiGE retake on Vertigo where he full blind spammed through smoke the guy who was tight right, and then kills the second one. That was funny to me because I made a joke this weekend to those guys. I was joking to ELiGE that he needs to get a very specific ESL sponsorship for every time he pulls off a sick play, a refrag logo just pops up in the corner. And that was the one where it's literally like, that is just pre-fire, the game mode. Like, I've seen that shit before. I've done that against bots. He's doing that in the server, but it's like, that is literally, the training module in action, and you could just see it with ELiGE. That wasn't even his best highlight of the weekend. It's just the one that's like lodged in my brain because of the way it came through. But he had some sick plays, some sick aces. There were a ton of aces this weekend as well.
So many.
That's actually probably reflective of the fact that it's the end of the season and the Counter-Strike's getting pretty scrappy, but like it's still fun to watch. So
it's fun for the fans, yeah.
I think that Madden map against Mongolz was sick. Senzu's Deagle, what was it, a 4K it wound up being? Dust 2 ramp towards Cat was like, you're blowing my mind. Yeah, I don't know. I think, and then watching Complexity finally lift a trophy after just so long. Again, like I've watched some of these guys since they were at like locals playing under random teams as 16-year-olds, and I've seen, I've followed and known JT and TC since they came over with the Project Destiny, and like just seeing them finally lift a damn trophy was a really cool moment. That's the one I'm taking forward with me.
I love that. For me, it was Preeh. The whole. There was so many people have kind of written him off, and we're like, oh, it's done. And I think just watching him do Preeh things was insane. I think round 2 on Nuke against Complexity, even though they lost, like I shouted at the screen at the time where I was like, just marry me, because he like won the whole round. Like that was the extreme level we were at, where I was like, this is so cool. And also I was quite excited. There was a few times where Pius, like I've always loved Pius, and I think he's phenomenal, but I don't think we've seen Pius of CSGO in CS2 at all. And he had a few moments this weekend, especially with Madden on that Mirage, where I went, yes, like it's still in there. So I think there was like a lot of faith for me from the Falcons point of view, which is probably going to break my heart down the line, but whatever. And I will say, as much as I was pushing the Falcons narrative in the finals because my analysts were leaning on Complexity, watching JT lift a trophy was pretty cool. I say this all the time and people get annoyed, but I have known him since he was like 15. I remember he used to play in a team called Flipside Tactics, not the real Flipside Tactics, just like a weird South African ripoff. And he then moved to a team called Carbon. But the Flipside thing, he was in it for a short while. And I remember trying to interview him at an event and him literally running away from me because he was too scared to do an interview. Like he actually ran, and then his dad made him do the interview. Like that is the JT I remember. So when you get to, he didn't talk. Like I thought he was mute at one point because like even now he mumbles, but like he didn't talk. He ran away from me. Like I know that he thought I was a complete weirdo and he wanted nothing to do with me. So like watching him lift a trophy, I was just like, that's sick. Like I remember you when you were like so weird and small, and like it's just exciting. And I also like, I know how his parents still watch all his games and are so involved, and I can just imagine like how hyped they were. So that was really special. I'm curious to see what happens with Complexity, though. I'm wondering if this lineup now stays as is, or if this celebration is short lived. That'll be the big question mark of the player break for me.
Yeah, it's about your ambitions, right? For Complexity, their ambition isn't to lift this trophy; it's to lift a Cologne trophy or a Cato trophy or a major trophy, right? That's the ambition that they've set for themselves, and it's a tough situation for them as a team. Because you compare them to, in terms of like budget spend, compare them to the teams that are above them in the rankings. It's similar to ENCE, right? Where like they have to make more happen with less. But it can happen, as we saw with ENCE last year. It can happen. You can hit that moment. And so the question is, does Complexity feel like this collection of players that they have right now can hit that level up? I think that they can. But what's the patience rating? And also, if you look at a player like ELiGE who wants to be lifting those trophies, who wants to be building that legacy, what's his patience level with the rest of the team? Because at the end of the day, he's got options. There's a lot of people who'd be happy to get him. So you got to keep him happy. You got to make sure that this team is progressing and leveling up. And I am kind of curious to see what they do in search of that. I don't know. I do not have objectivity with this roster, and I know that I don't have objectivity with this roster, but I am curious to see what they do in the break.
I think ELiGE needs more firepower around him, to be honest. I think if he keeps playing the way he played at Challenger, like a little bit more firepower, and they could do what they need to do. But we'll have to wait and see. I think most importantly, what we've learned from Challenger, Mike, is that you and I are not very good at predictions.
You know what? I feel like I did pretty well. Obviously, the Mongolz one wrong, but my
you said top 4 seeds going in would make the semis. I would make the playoffs.
Yeah, I think I whiffed on. No, I said Aurora could push it.
Aurora could ruin it, but 2 out of 5 times you don't. 2 out of 5 times you go with Aurora. I wrote it down.
Okay. All right. I'm still feeling all right.
You were more correct than me. Let's put it that way.
But yeah,
I got
predictions.
the yeah.
Beautiful thing is
Yes.
that predictions are very hard to actually get right because CS is about competition and competition surprises you. And that's the joyous part of it. That's the fun of it. So, yeah, ready for the next one. Ready to be wrong again, Sam.
Good summary. I'm ready for the next one as well. It'll only be in October. We're doing Atlanta, and that's when Challenged will be back. And now you can tell us what you think of the whole event. And I would like to learn Russian swear words, so you can put them in the comments if you want, so I know what they're shouting at people. Mike's like, don't do that. We're going to do that.
I choose ignorance.